All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Ponder podcast, or if you're a first time listener, welcome. I haven't shot a podcast in a few days, but I had this idea and I was wondering if it was going to be a video or just a podcast. And it's about the worst breakup I ever experienced and how I got back to being the normal me again because it's a relationship where I lost myself. And I wanted to make it like this big production type of thing. And I was like, you know what? This is more of a story. I think it requires podcasts for people who get into relationships. If you're a guy, a young guy specifically, and you're wanting to be in a long-term relationship, it's just understanding what you're looking for and looking beyond just the physical parts of a person, as much as us men are very physical individuals. But I'm gonna give you the story, and I don't know, maybe my ex will hear this one day, but I want to respect her, so I will try my best to completely keep as much information out, just in case. But for the most part, I thought a podcast would be better to tell this story and what led me to relationships, being so fascinated by them, being so enamored, and learning about not only myself, but also learning how to be better at it, how to be better at being a partner, boyfriend, husband, eventual father, things like that. Because I was in a different state back then. This relationship occurred between the ages of 19, like I was about to turn 20, so 19 to 21. This relationship occurred. It was about a year and some change that we were in this. And prior to that, I had been in two serious relationships. And what I consider serious is that I was in a monogamous relationship with one person for a year or a little bit over a year. When I was 15, I had a relationship with my first girlfriend. And that lasted about a year till I was 16. And then I had another serious relationship at the end of high school. So I was like about 17 till about 18. No, sorry. I have three relationships prior to this. I'm forgetting one because that didn't last a year. It lasted about 9-10 months, something like that. And yeah. But anyway, so let me start with one thing. And that is, I left one woman to be with another woman right away. I had no break in between. So I'm 19 years old. I'm dating a woman whom I met through a friend, and at a party. Back in the day, we used to have a lot of house parties. I'm pretty sure they still exist nowadays. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear you guys if y'all go to house parties or anything like that in your neighborhoods. I was still living in Coney Island, Brooklyn, with my mom, and met this girl. We started dating, and over the course of that dating, I was going to college, working a part-time job, and I was into it for a bit. I originally wanted to go with this girl's sister. That was my intent in the beginning. But being in the space that I was in, I had just gotten out of a relationship like months prior to that. I wasn't really looking for anything. I was just looking for some flings. That's what I was doing at the time, just like any other young boy. Get out of that relationship, get into this one. This one, I noticed that I stopped being attracted to her physically, and times in the bedroom became difficult. 19-year-old guy. Why is this so hard? Why don't I want it? Why don't I feel the urge? And at the time, I was working at this supermarket, and this girl was working there. She had a boyfriend, but she was like the epitome of the type of woman I was looking for physically. very pretty, amazing body, things I was looking for at the time. It's just the honest part of it. And we have flirted a lot. We had hung out outside of work a few times. This is without the current girl knowing. We even talked about getting out of our relationships. We used to talk deep into the night. I mean, this is when I used to be on the phone for hours. We used to be on the phone till like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, fall asleep on the phone, things like that. I don't know if people still do that. I guess they do it nowadays with like FaceTime. But we were on the phone, and eventually I broke it off with my ex. And about 2 weeks later, maybe 3 weeks, I don't know, my timing is, this was over 10 years ago. She ends up breaking up with her boyfriend, this new girl that I worked with, and we start dating. And it already, as you can tell, and you're probably like, whoa, we started off on a bad foot. Starting a relationship as soon as you get out of one, not a recipe for success. Maybe it is. I'd be curious to hear, but yeah. I hope my audio is not sounding too loud because it's wild how much it's jumping. Anyway, so I get into this relationship and we have a hard time. It's basically, and if you listen to a few podcasts that I've done with my current partner of almost 10 years, we were like a trauma bond. This anxious, avoidant type. I'm a very avoidant person. She was a very anxious person. We just made sense. She started to go through my phone in the beginning, deleting all the women I had on my phone, including family members, by the way, that I wouldn't talk to any other girl. So obviously, I should have seen that as a red flag. I was too young and dumb and full of cum, as Paul Chek says. And I allowed her to do this because guess what? She's so hot. I wanted her, right, physically. And obviously she gave me a hard time, which is good. I think women should challenge you, not just give it up immediately, right? She was younger than me by about a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. So I'm 19, she's 17, going on 18. So when she turns 18 was when it finally happened. It was not a good experience the first time because she definitely had some trauma. I won't get into the details. Again, that's her story to tell. She is her own person. I don't want to reveal too much, but there was definitely something there. So these fights we had throughout our relationship would be part of like a jealous thing. If I didn't pick up my phone, if I didn't answer a text at a certain time. At one point, we stopped being in the same workspace. So I ended up getting a different job at retail, which eventually she ended up getting a job at the same location. And then I ended up getting a job at a mall. And that we kind of had that distance, but we were always talking to each other, texting. We would call each other like 3 or 4 times a day. We just, as I would always say, like up each other's asses all the time. And we had really, really tough fights, like fights that would be screaming matches. At some points, she would come knock on my door if we were fighting. I will hang up on her. She would hang up on me and not pick up my phone call. I would call like 50 times type of thing. Like I was a horrible person at the time. We had such bad fights that we got to the point of putting our hands on one another, not necessarily like hitting or anything, but just like grabbing type of thing. We did that to one another. And over the course of this time, we continued to get into it. I remember getting tired of it. At the end of the relationship, I was trying to become a better person. I wanted more from my life. I started figuring out like, I need something. I need something more. I don't know where I'm headed. I don't have a purpose. I had graduated from college with no idea what I was going to do next. And she was there for all that. But I realized, and she was a good person, like big heart, very caring. There was that side of it. So you can't knock that. But it's just the amount of fighting we had done. And the things we would say to one another was just, these are things you just don't say to people, you know? And eventually I started getting tired of it. And the final straw was me trying to become a better person. And I had watched this documentary at the time called The Secret. Now, you might be like, The Secret, if you don't know what it is, it's pretty much just boo-boo stuff about like, basically you think it and it comes true. You think about the successes of your future and it comes true. While it can be true, visualization is a powerful tool in a toolbox. You know, there's a lot of action and momentum that's required to get to where you want to be. Will it be exactly how you visualize it? Not really, but it could be really close. And there's stories like that out there of people who wrote things down and like, oh my God, I completed all these things. I can't believe it. Because, you know, scientifically, your brain already knows the neurons are there. So anytime an opportunity comes up, your brain is following that. So it like can see those things. And it leads you to getting success. Anyway, I didn't know about that. But I watched The Secret. It blew my mind because I wanted a better life. I wanted something more. So I watched this documentary like 3 times in a row. I tell her about it. She falls asleep on me on the phone while I'm telling her about it. I never forget this. And then she came over one day and I put it on. We tried to watch it. And she was like, this is bullshit, whatever. Falls asleep again on it. And she had her own challenges, mental health issues. And we didn't know much about that back then. It wasn't really talked about. But, you know, I always think, I hope she's doing better, much better nowadays. And living a great life. But at the time, you know, I showed her that and I was like, oh, does this person want to grow? Do we want to become better for one another? And I wasn't seeing that. I ended up joining this MLM, but, you know, that's a conversation for another time. But I joined this MLM because I wanted, again, to be successful. I wanted to be a better person. I wanted to find different ways to make money outside of just a retail job. And we just got into a spat one day, just a random spat. And I was, you know, we kind of broke up with each other. It was kind of like this back and forth. She broke up with me and then we kind of got back together. And then I broke up with her and it was just this back and forth. And I was like, I am done. Like that was it. That was the final straw of our relationship together. And after that, after we broke up, it's a haze. But I got into a deep depression because, again, we were so into one another, like literally talking all the time. She was always over in my house, like all the time. She never stayed over, but she was there almost every day. We would meet each other after work every day. Like we always like fucking peanut butter and jelly. And that's not healthy. I noticed like even now in my relationship, you know, I know most people know about the 5 love languages, but I always say there's a 6th one, a hidden one, and that's called distance. It's good to have that in a relationship where you have your own life, they have their own life, and you come together and make each other's lives better. So we break up, and I remember just being in this deep, dark depression. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it in another video I'm making right now, a video on momentum. I don't have a title for it yet, but I'm currently in the midst of I was actually writing the script for it before making this, and I just had this idea. I was just like, I'm just going to do it because I'm that kind of person that if I don't do it right away, it's not going to be done. And I thought this was a great topic to talk about for next podcast episode. And during that time, I don't know how long it took me. It was just a really bad breakup. I had never experienced the last 3 that I had. The last 3 girlfriends were not this bad. I mean, the first one obviously hit the hardest because it was the first one. She broke up with me because I was a very anxious person at the time with her. She broke up with me because of how intense I was, how jealous I was, things like that. Granted, thank God she did that. Second girlfriend broke up with me as well because I actually don't even think she was really that into me. It's just like, I don't know. She just decided to take a stab at it. date an older guy because she was also younger than me. And then the third girl, that was my fault. So it was like we broke up with one another because of that. And because I wanted someone else. So a lot on me, my fault. She was willing to make it work. I wasn't. Granted, that's how it worked. But for like a month or two, I never forget, I was playing this video game called Skyrim, Elder Scrolls Skyrim. And that's all I did that month. Obviously, I would go to work. I still worked part-time at this retail company, so I was working like 25 to 28 hours a week. I had 3 days off a week. I would just stay in my room and eat and play Skyrim. I probably put 100+ hours into that game in a little over a month. And that was horrible. I had no direction. I was purposeless. I was still grieving this breakup. And I didn't know what to do. But I was lucky to be part of this MLM. And it's crazy that I'm saying that, right? Most people be like, what? Are you crazy? You spent all this money. They took all this money from me. The MLM doesn't exist anymore. It was called World Ventures. It was like this traveling MLM, and I've always wanted to travel and things like that. So I was like, oh, this is perfect for me to be a part of. But anyway, the good things that came out of that were the books that would get, that they would talk about. They would talk about a lot of these books, whether it was like finance books, self-help books, like even psychology books. And anytime they talked about it, when I would go to the events, we would have events every week. I would go, at least I had some sense of being around people. But I remember meeting this guy one day and we're talking and he's like, hey, you should read this, you should read that. Oh, you just got a relationship, you should read. Have you ever heard of The Game? I have a deep video and podcast on this called The Toxic Dating Industry, where I've talked about my story of being in the game. But I would say that something I didn't mention in that podcast was how much it saved me. It saved me because I had no community. I have friends and stuff. We would go out, we would hang out and stuff. And I was 21, so I was finally able to go out to clubs and do those things. So I started to do that. I mean, it's not the best way to go. I don't recommend that now, to do that after you get out of a relationship. But it's what I knew at the time. So anyway, I read this book, The Game, blows my mind. I remember highlighting the book. I'm like studying the crap out of this book. And it saved me from being in that deep, dark place where I had thoughts of suicide or like never being able to find the person to be in a relationship with, because that's what we all want. Never getting out of my mom's house and living on my own and doing something on my own. Yeah, I had dreams and goals with this MLM, for instance. At the time, I was very gullible. I thought I was going to be successful in it. But I remember like doing presentations to my entire family, all my friends, like all these people. I think 2 of them joined it with me, but they eventually left. And it really put a damper into like what I was going through. So The Game and The Secret, the documentary plus the book, really helped me. Getting out of this deep, dark hole, and I think the hole was created because of the relationship I had with this woman. And how much we were so ingrained together that once that's gone, it's like someone passing away. We didn't talk after. We didn't keep any communication. We just let it be, deleted the numbers, and just kept moving. The craziest part is we lived in the same neighborhood, so we actually saw each other a few times. And we wouldn't say a single word to one another, which is wild, right? You're with somebody for so long. I know there's a bit of a caveat. You're with somebody for so long and then you don't talk anymore. I know a lot of people are against their being friends with, exes, but it's like that person was in your life and saw you grow with, a year is full of growth, and they saw you and was part of that. And then that's it. It's just done. So it's something I'm always curious about, always wonder. I know a lot of people say you can't be friends with your exes, especially if you're a man, your girl definitely shouldn't be friends with exes type of thing. But it's definitely a societal thing. It's definitely a conditioning thing. It's definitely a jealousy thing. But maybe it's for the better, depending on how that relationship was. But think about it. That person was with you for so long. Anyway, I digress. It's just something I think about. It's called the Pound podcast for a reason. But it was just bad, and it affected me for a while after. They say it takes about 18 months to get over somebody you've been with for long term. I remember reading that in Aziz Ansari's book, Modern Romance, which, yes, he's a comedian, but he actually wrote it with a scientist. So they did all these studies in different countries about relationship dynamics and things like that. It's a very fascinating book. Probably still holds to this day. Maybe there should be some updates with online dating and how dating apps are taking over. I'd be curious to read that version. But anyway, I started to get better. How did I get better? From the worst breakup of my life. Well, one, through utilizing The Secret. I would say The Secret really helped because I created a list of affirmations I would tell myself every day. So the affirmation I was telling myself originally was how much I sucked, how I will be nobody, how I'm going to be the same person as my family, and I'm not going to move beyond anything. That's tough. That's a tough time to go through, which is why, suicidal thoughts started to come in. Even just, becoming a monk, that was an idea at once. So funny. But I needed to switch my thinking first. And The Secret really helped with that. It allowed me to start thinking positive thoughts, to start these affirmations. I remember I had the list on my phone. I still have the list to this day. Maybe I'll share it with y'all. If you're curious, just comment below and let me know if you want me to share that list. And yeah, it's woo-woo, but at the time, it freaking helped me. And I would, what I ended up doing was recording a voice memo on my phone. And, well, not on my phone, on my iPod Touch. I had an iPod Touch that we use for music. My phone was separate because at the time I couldn't afford an iPhone. But it was like the iPhone 3 at the time. So I don't know how much capabilities it had at the time. So I had an iPod Touch I had bought from a friend, then I had a phone. The iPod Touch, I recorded the affirmations one by one. Recorded myself saying it to me. And I would just loop it. So I would, in the morning, when I would head to work, because I mostly worked the morning shift, I would just pop that in and repeat it all day. I did that for months. I would just repeat it. Before bed, I would throw those headphones on. Same thing. Repeat these affirmation and these mantras to myself. I didn't know anything about wellness or anything. I just got this idea from reading The Secret and just like visualizing my future, which some of that has come to fruition, which is wild when I think about it, whether that's like living in China, moving to California and living this life, having a dog, like these are visions thoughts I had previously. So I started to do that. I started to read books, whether that's like books on money because of this MLM. So I read like Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Millionaire's Fast Lane, Think and Grow Rich, anything. I read Napoleon Hill's books, and from there I started like I would go to like Barnes and Nobles and sit and like look for what was the top books and just like buy them and read them as well. So I don't remember many titles, but I was just reading a ton of books, doing these affirmations, and I was reading The Game. I ended up finding a community of guys. I'll never forget this. It was a Facebook group called The Brotherhood. I found through some forums I was a part of. The guy's really cool. We hopped on a call. They kind of had this like induction process where they would like interview you and see if you're not a crazy person to join this group. Even though I would say people in this community could have been crazy, but a lot of these guys really down to earth. They were all on the same. Like that was the most beautiful part of being part of this men's group. It was like the original men's group I had. Yeah, we were all there to be like get better at picking up women. That was the sole goal that the group was created for. But I think it turned into more than that, because in order to pick up women or be good with women, you have to be good yourself. I didn't know that in the beginning. That's kind of where it was leading me to. So I started meeting these guys and going out and getting out of my shell. I was always an introvert. I was always home playing video games. That's what happened after my first this really bad breakup. And I would just be cooped up. And even when I would go out with friends and stuff, I was always in the corner, kind of like holding my drink and not talking to anybody, not trying to dance with any girls, or any of that. It was just me being a little introvert that I've always been. But the game really helped me break out of my shell. It allowed me to understand being comfortable in the uncomfort. Approaching a random woman on the train station, on the train, or in Union Square, Times Square, Washington Square Park, like all these places I would go with my guys. And it was always with my guys. Like I never could do it by myself. I tried and I would never do anything. But getting rejected and dealing with those rejections like helped me. We would turn it into jokes, or like, we would try. Sometimes we get success. I get a number, go on a date, and dated women through doing this. I was able to build confidence, and through reading the game allowed me to read other books on becoming a better man, how to dress better, like right now, it's like dress better. You're wearing a hoodie and you have like shaggy hair right now. I tried, but I am growing out my hair, for instance, and that's probably something they would have been like, no, you should cut your hair, make sure I have a shaggy beard right now. I have to shave. But all these little things I started to pick up, you know, it. I started to realize after many years of doing this. I was single for many years after that until I met my current partner. I didn't want to get into a relationship. Every girl I met, I was like, "Hey, I'm not looking for anything. I'm totally fine with. I don't even know what I'm doing with my life. I'm trying to figure that out first before I get into a relationship again." And even though when I got with my partner, I had an idea of where I wanted to go. I had aspirations and dreams, but I had not a concrete idea yet. So I spent the next few years after that breakup, and we ended up actually, fun fact, and I'm gonna rewind a bit, around 22, like a little bit after my 22nd birthday, me and my ex started to talk again, and we actually tried for about 2 months. I was living on my own. I ended up moving out of my mom's house, even though I was broke as hell. All I could afford was rent and food, nothing else. Like, I was broke all the time. But I needed to be out. I needed to be out of my mom's house to find myself. I know that sounds crazy, like, oh, that's so woo woo. Like, everyone says that. But yeah, I needed to get out of the house to find and work on myself. And that's what I did. That whole time, I would just watch YouTube videos. I was doing this MLM thing with some friends. I ended up quitting it after about a year and a half of doing it, 2 years. I ended up like leaving it, thank God, because they went out of business anyway. And I was just focusing on me. I was focusing on picking up girls. I know it was a big deal at the time of my life, but I think that was for a reason. As I look, hindsight's always 2020. It was to allow me to break out of my shell. Because if I never did that, I would not be able to do podcasts or create videos and be on YouTube where anyone can see me and judge me in many ways, and get horrible comments and all that stuff. But I was able to break out of that shell, break out of my introverted shell, break out of that depression stint that I had for quite some time. And not to say I haven't experienced that again after that. But after a breakup, it could be hard. I mean, science literally says that your heart goes through a specific process. It's like a grieving process, just like as if someone died. And I was able to come back because of books, which is why I talk so highly of them. If you watch any of my creative videos outside of the podcast, I always mention a book, whether that's, one book, many books. I'm always reading a book. You see a book back there. If you're watching the video version that I have, that's not actually a book to read. That's a workbook, but I'm doing it every morning. For instance, I sit down and do that. All because of a breakup. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, that breakup. And I'm grateful for this woman. If she's listening and watching, I am grateful for you, because it allowed me to break out of it. I always wonder, like, if we stayed in that relationship, how bad that would have ended up in the future for both of us. Because I was not a great person. I was a horrible person. At the time, I didn't know better. And that's what books were such a big part of it. It saved my life in more ways than one. It wasn't only the books, it was the fact that I was willing to break out of my comfort shell, break out of this introvertedness, and reach out to people, learn from people. These guys, I didn't learn only about picking up women. I learned so much more. I learned about business. Some of them were business owners. I learned about how to be a good person at work, how to, if you're working a 9 to 5, how to be a strong leader, how to act in those places, because I never had that growing up. And it was called the brotherhood. And I look at it in hindsight. I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I needed, because I have an older brother. I was the oldest sibling. My father wasn't around when I was growing up. I grew up with my mom, single mom. So these men were able to show me a specific side of being a good man. Yeah, they were out there trying to pick up women, but they just wanted to take control of how they were going to, take action on finding their life partner, because that was the goal for everyone eventually. Like, some of them were like me. I just want to have fun right now. I want to learn how to talk to people, because talking to women is not only that, it's like you got to learn to talk to people. What about her friends, right? I learned how to just talk to them, to not be a creep, to be like, oh, this guy is cool. Granted, he can talk to my friend, my single friend. If she had a boyfriend, obviously we were respectful of that. Not everybody, but we were. But it was learning all these skill sets. There were skill sets that I picked up because of a breakup. I always think, if I didn't have that breakup, what would have happened? Or if that breakup didn't, that breakup occurred later on, not because of a documentary, a book that I read, how else would have I continued on? I mean, I probably would have went back to college, which was something I was thinking at the time, but I was like, that's not my route, because I suck at it and I don't want to get into deep debt. I think I could figure it out in another way. Many people do, including my father. But I think of all those things. And, I say all this, if you're still listening, you're here. Thank you, first of all. But a breakup can be your greatest catalyst to the next level of you. In gaming, if you play a lot of video games like I do, you learn through failing. You die a lot. This is why I like games like the Dark Souls, and that studio, I forget the studio's name, but they made games like Bloodborne and Sekiro, and most recently they made the Elden Ring game. You learn through dying. Like, you cannot beat that game without dying. There's people that have that comes now, but in the beginning, when everyone gets the game for the first time, they don't go through it the first time and not die. You have to. It's part of the process, right? And you learn through the death. You're like, oh, I'm not supposed to be in this area yet. Which, same thing with life. Hey, I'm probably not supposed to be here. I have to learn some things before I can come back here and be better prepared, right? And sometimes you're not as prepared, but you have enough tools and smarts to get beyond that level in the game, even though you're not supposed to be there. Like, you're level 20 and the level of the area 30. But you learn how, through your skill sets and the tools you have, you get through it. But you're able to level up much faster because the enemies are much stronger. And that's how life is, right? Going through the worst breakup was that. It was like a level 30 area. I was on level 20 and I'm like, oh crap, I just went through this. I don't know what to do. It's just like, no, you got all the tools you need right now, buddy. The books that came, I always say God blessed me with all these specific tools I was able to use at the time. And that's what we use in anything we go through. You know, just like losing a job, which just happened to me, getting laid off, the first time ever that happened to me. And it's the same thing. It's like going through this breakup all over again. You know, luckily I have a partner now who's very supportive. And I have that support this time because I didn't have any of that last time, right? With a breakup. But it's such a great learning process. And I'm curious to see what I'll think about this time in 10 years. Just like I think about this relationship and this breakup and how it supported my growth, and look back and I'm like, geez, look how far I've come. Holy crap. This is amazing. And maybe you're going through your breakup right now and you don't know how to deal with it. You were together for many years, maybe a few months. Sometimes you meet a woman and she is mind-blowing. She is amazing. I've been there with just girls that I dated when I was gaming. They're amazing. And you're like, it's just not going to work out because maybe our values don't align, or we broke up, we stopped seeing each other because they found somebody. I had that happen to me. And it sucked. I felt it for a few months. You know what I mean? I felt it. And I was just like, damn, that felt like a breakup, even though we weren't really together. You know, we weren't boyfriend, girlfriend. We didn't have these titles. But she was such a big part of my time. You know, that time that we were together, it was 6, 7, 8 months, whatever. And I hear a lot of guys, my single friends, talk about women in their lives like that, where they dated and then they can't stop thinking about them. You're probably going through that. And it's okay. You're going to be better. You're going to be so much better. And the best things to do is find community, read good books, learn about yourself, whether that's through meditation. I like how some guys that I follow or know, after a breakup, they become in the best shape possible because they get into going to the gym. They just get a new fire within. It's beautiful. I love seeing that. I'm like, yes, let's get after it. It happened, great. It sucks right now, but as Jocko Willink says in his video, good. All these bad things happen, good. We get better. And sometimes you don't need that month, just like I had, where I did nothing but play video games. You know, I'm not going to knock that. That was a fine time in my life. It's fine. But allow me to simmer, to think, to let that grieving process occur before I went back out there and started attacking life again. So if you're going through that breakup, good. I'd be curious to hear your stories, to comments below. If you enjoyed this podcast, check out some of my other videos. There's many more coming out. Again, comments will help because it gives me better ideas of what y'all looking for me to make podcasts or a video on, depending on what it feels, what makes the most sense for that specific story I'm trying to tell. I hope my experience helps you in so many ways. And you can, find that shortcut for you versus me. It took many years. Hopefully for you, it won't take as long. Right? But that's it for me. That's all. Thank you so much for listening. And until the next video.